Psychotechnologies live. Oh, welcome.
Welcome back to part 2 or 3 of episode Elliot's Adventures Through America.
Adventures in Lilydale.
Yeah, we're up to Lilydale. So this one's a fun one because I was there for your trip.
Right. So right, in my travels across America, I decided I would meet up with Daniel, who and I got a recommendation for a weird and wacky place called Lilydale. And so I drove across New York State to get to Lilydale and find out what the heck it was all about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to
America as well?
Yeah. What a wild place. Totally such a strange little phenomena.
Yeah. So tell me how you decided or why you decided to go there, or how it came up.
All right. So there's a guy I know who talks to angels. He does some channeling. He's got an angel board, kind of like a Ouija board, and he reads messages from angels. And he said, "Lilydale's cool. You should go to Lilydale." And we were like, "Well, we definitely have to go on that recommendation," and we did. And that's how he ended up. And I was like, Daniel will love a wacky place like Lilydale, and it's like we're gonna go look at the Psychotechnologies in Lilydale and see what happens. And yeah, that's where we went.
Okay, that's cool. I guess for a story, I went because you're like, we're gonna meet there. I'm like, okay, and then I went.
Right. So Lilydale, you can look it up online, but Lilydale or Lilydale Assembly, I think it's called, is known because it's a little town. It's kind of like a tiny suburb, and it's got about. It's technically a what?
A hamlet.
A hamlet, right? It's a hamlet.
Yeah.
And it has something like 30 or 40 psychics living in it, or mediums. Mediums.
Yeah, they call themselves mediums.
Right. So psychics are probably a slightly different craft where they can sort of do different things, but mediums are more like talk to your dead relatives or talk to the dead.
Yeah. Those dead people's spirits.
Right. So once a year, Lilydale has a some sort of spiritual season, and people come along to Lilydale to visit all the mediums and to spend time in town, and people run workshops, and it's kind of a whole experience to go and meet all the people in Lilydale. I think one of the most interesting parts for me was the way they relate to Christianity, because of course Christianity being the dominant culture in America means that you can't just go practicing witchcraft or something. You kind of have to align with Christianity, otherwise you're gonna get kicked out.
Yeah, because they're like kind of, I guess, Christians or Christian derivatives or like Christian aesthetics.
Right. So the interesting thing is every religion has a mystical branch, right? So Christianity has the Christian faith healers and the Christian mystics. There are, in fact, mystical and healing branches of Christianity. It's not all structural and boring and Jesus-like. It's got these other branches of Christianity. So they have in fact found a way to sort of align themselves with the dominant Christian narrative and not piss off the local populace.
Yeah, they definitely acted in line with what they consider Christianity. But I think there would definitely be some hardcore Christians that would be like, this is probably talking to ghosts and stuff is
this is sacrilegious or blasphemous in some way. Interestingly, they had a fairy garden, like a fairy forest with little
so they had Oh yeah, that was the graveyard you're talking about, or
Well,
the
no, they had two things. They had the fairy, like a fairy trail, which was like a little walk path through some forest that had
yeah,
was decorated with all sorts of like fairy and forest creature type
yeah,
little statues or little gnomes or little huts. Um,
yeah.
so
It was
so I've never thought of fairies as lining up with Christian, like agreeing with Christianity. Like fairy worldview and Christian worldview don't really meet.
yeah. I
Um,
think fairy is much more pagan,
yeah, yeah,
and
somewhere
Christianity is
more in the pagan worldview. But they
yeah.
had that there as well because why not? They didn't really have witchcraft, but they did have fairies.
Well, sort of. They had a fairy path, but like I don't
Right.
like
There
he
was
was really that we bumped into was really like talking about, oh, here the fairies are in the forest.
right. They had like a pet graveyard, which was a nice little touch
Yeah,
of little various rocks and tombstones that said like 1950 and 1960 and like
yeah,
going
pet
way back
cemetery.
to yeah. It was a nice
That
little.
was really nice. We're pushing the stroller through the pet cemetery,
Hmm.
looking well, very stunning.
I must say it was a beautiful area. It was like set
Yeah.
in some very pretty woodland. There was a lake next door. Uh, Very quiet
Yeah,
suburb.
yeah. Let's talk about the cathedral.
The Okay.
Um, so that cathedral to me, it was like, so it's the middle of the forest, and they got these
Oh,
pews
the
set up.
outdoor cathedral. Right.
Yeah, they got these pews set up, and there's no like walls per se. Like there's no like there's nothing like there's the pews, and then there's this like big stump with
Hmm.
some steps built in,
Right. Right.
and it's in this like forest with these giant trees and these like giant canopies that are going on. And so you walk into it and it feels like you're in a cathedral.
Oh, of course,
Like
because cathedrals usually have high ceilings.
yeah, it's got these high ceilings and like large open area, like decorated, but it's all trees.
Hmm.
Like it's just natural forest or whatever is there. But it didn't it like it felt like a cathedral.
Mm.
The spirit like called to me, and
Hmm.
I sat on the altar or pulpit or I don't know what it was, stage.
Mm.
What We didn't have a guide, so we were just exploring ourselves. And yeah, and I preached a little bit, and that was really nice. It wasn't a lot, but there was like some calling to me to
Hmm.
speak.
To speak.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
and that was amazing. Like I would love a backyard with one of those things. Like it was just so like it was so spiritual, and it was so calling, and it was also very new to me. Like I've never been somewhere like that,
Mm.
where it because it's like a man-made cathedral, but like God designed it, or
Mm.
nature designed it, or however you want to call it. And so it's like a nature aesthetic, where it's like instead of having like stained glass or statues, you get like trees and leaves and forest.
Mm. I wonder what happens if a tree ever dies. It's like near the front of the, the cathedral.
I don't know. I don't even know if they do it. Like it didn't look like, it looked like they didn't, like maybe their maintenance was just clearing the area
Mm.
where the things are. But like it looked like they didn't do any maintenance, and it just naturally created this enclosure. I have no idea. Maybe they do graft it or stuff. I don't know
Ah.
actually. But it was like that was amazing. That was amazing to me.
That was your highlight of Lilydale, the outdoor cathedral space.
There was a bunch of highlights actually in Lily,
Ah.
but that was a big one. That was like that really called to me.
Hmm. So Lilydale's like a 200-year-old town. So all the buildings are sort of made out of wood and
100, he said. They
100?
said.
100? Maybe it's 100. But it looks quite like
I had a guy, the first guy I talked to actually, he lived there for 50 years.
Ah,
And I'm like, and like he's only been there half the time.
ah. I see. You know, I'm still doing the things with dates where if you say 50 years ago, I start from 2000 and count backwards, and I go 1950. That's not
Yeah.
very long ago. But of course, we're here in 2020, 2022 sort of era. So I really got to stop counting backwards from 2000. But my adjustment is to like add on the extra 100. I'm like, surely Lilydale's been around since the 18 something or others. But
Yeah,
maybe.
I think he said 100. He said 100, but I don't know how they count it, right? Like, because we did also do some history, or
Mm.
actually, I guess you weren't there for that. It was when I was looking for you guys, and I couldn't find you, so I just watched. There was this movie they were doing the history of it, and it started with a couple people who. So okay, so there's some sketchy stuff, and there's some like non-sketchy
Okay,
stuff.
Lilydale incorporated in 1879. So it's like 150 years old.
Okay, all right.
It may have possibly they changed their name and they sort of fiddled around in the 1903, but basically it's about that old.
Okay,
Anyway,
cool.
sketchy history.
Yeah, so there's like some sketchy stuff and some non-sketchy stuff. So like the ferry path I thought was nice. It was just like a nice walk through the garden and through the forest. The cathedral really spoke to me and like really felt like a spiritual, um, like very, very spiritually open, which I liked. And then there's some stuff with the like with the ghosts. So mediums are people that talk to ghosts, and it's not there's different levels of ghosts, right? There's like the our ancestors are here with us, which is like very common in Judaism, and it's something that I really connect to sometimes. And then there's like, oh, there's this dead guy who's up here, and they make noise, and
Yes, I
they
hear an ominous noise in the room with us.
like you hear like you physically hear a thing, like you're not in the spirituals, you're not in like that meditative state where you're experiencing what we would call metaphysics, but what like maybe atheist people would call just like psychology or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is like no, there's like coins coming out and noises and like that stuff. I've got to say I'm like 99% sure that stuff is not
It's more creative than truth, maybe.
like, yeah, it's I think there's probably some dishonesty there.
Mm.
um we didn't experience any of that stuff though,
No,
but we did talk to people who were into that.
I mean half the fun of being in such a spiritual focused town is to chat to all the people who and hear their stories of having talked to a medium or having themselves noticed something or had something happen that was quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
So we had a lot of fun talking to all the people that we could.
yeah. So yeah, we did have a lot of fun, and nobody really tried to like push beliefs or anything on us,
Yeah,
which
that
was
was
nice.
so. I did say there is a Christian underpinning there, but I think that exists so that Lilydale wouldn't get trampled on by the surrounding cultural religions. But they didn't try and push. They often describe like, and I've heard this word used before. The word source as the like general spiritual flavor
Yeah,
of power, and you know that can apply to the source of Christianity or like the god of Christianity or the god of Hinduism or the god of sort of like the source of in general. It's a sort of
yeah.
non-denominational
The
term.
Great Spirit, which is
Right.
sort of like non-denominational.
Right. They lean Christian, but the Great Spirit was kind of like the neutral flavor that they were aiming for.
Yeah. It was hard to tell how much of that is like they're saying it for our benefit and how much it's like this is how
This
they talk when there's no one around.
right. Right. Are they all Christians when there's no one around, or are they non-denominational, some sort of source-based or mythic-based culture that talks to spirits, and then when there are people around, then they lean Christian because that's what's the respectable thing to do in polite society?
Yeah.
Good question. Don't know. Can't tell.
I didn't see a lot of crosses, I think.
There was not many. There was a few. Like
Was
there
some.
was a church, and the church did sort of like I attended a meditation, a morning meditation, which is about 20 people sitting in a circle, meditating
Was
together.
that the one with Ricky?
it
time?
was early in the morning. It's like
I was
9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. Everyone else was asleep. So
that.
but I'm like an early riser who jumps up and goes to things, and it was just a quiet little meditation circle, and people people were happy to be there.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I was gonna say,
We went to this healing. Do you want to describe the healing thing?
yeah, we went to this Reiki thing.
They didn't say Reiki. They called it healing. Uh, it
Okay.
wasn't called Reiki. It was
Okay.
called because Reiki is again Reiki is a denomination. Reiki is a transmission lineage that isn't Christian. So you can't use the word Reiki. It like seemed to channel the same way that I would expect Reiki to, but they
Well,
didn't
it's a
call it
thing that I
Reiki.
thought was Reiki, but
Right.
apparently it's
They didn't call it
not.
Reiki. You got to be really respectful when calling one form of spirit
Yeah,
a
yeah,
different
no, no, no.
spirit. So
Honest
they
mistake.
they didn't call it Reiki, but they called it either healing or faith healing or spiritual healing, something like that.
I don't know. So it was like very similar where they're touching your aura, I guess.
Yes,
And
they like
also
sort of wave their hands or they like do the thing. They like hold their attention on you. You sit there and
yeah,
they had about 4 practitioners, each taking one person at a time. And
yeah,
you would there was a room full of about 20 people who went up one by one, got
yeah,
assigned a practitioner and sat there for 2 to 5 minutes. And then, uh,
yeah. And we each had a turn.
yeah, I had a
Uh,
turn, Daniel had a turn.
yeah. And I definitely like felt something. Like I did feel different after. I felt lighter. Um, I don't know what that means. um, I feel like though, like I was starting to get a sense of it, and I am starting to get a sense of like people's auras.
Hmm.
But it's like very like it comes to me a little bit here and there. Not it's not like a thing I could do regularly.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it seems like my pseudo technical understanding, which is a cross between, my journey through rationality to then like much more subtle crafts like these healing things. Um, it does seem like there is a skill in a training, first of all, in sensitivity. Like these people seem to be sensitive to something or other.
yeah,
And to the extent that you can probably go to multiple healing people and they'll report a similar phenomena or a phenomena that has a connected descriptor to it. So someone will be like, this is about your father, and the next spiritual healer you go to will be this is something paternal, and then the third one you go to will be like
Well, they didn't. They
this
didn't.
is your masculine. They may use different language, but there'll be an overlap between them.
Well, okay, yeah. So for the ones we went to, they didn't describe it.
They
Like
didn't
they
talk
didn't.
to us. These ones, no.
Yeah, they just they asked for consent at the beginning,
Yep.
and then they did like a little prayer of like something about the Great Spirit
Yep.
or the
Yep.
one something. But it felt more of an alignment than a
They
and
didn't
it's
seem
like
to be working on anything specific, right?
yeah.
But so there's a sensitivity first of all, and then second of all, there's some sort of uh, passing of energy. Like they can put energy in, or they can shift energy or align energy. You described aligning in some
Yeah.
way.
It felt like the way I was imagining it is like an aura massage.
Hmm. Say more.
So yeah, so like we kind of like to sort of put it into an atheist perspective, we all have like personal space.
Well, we still have the way that we carry ourselves through time and space.
Sure, we have the way to carry ourselves, but like even beyond our physical body, we have a field that surrounds us that's called personal space.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that exactly? I don't care. But it's a thing that we're all aware of. And if you're not aware of it, you're aware of it when someone violates it.
Mm.
And
Right.
if you're not, you get better social awareness.
Mm.
And so there definitely is a thing like where you can go over to somebody and then like touch the boundary of it. And like they'll feel that.
Mm.
And you can feel that. And like you can definitely like interact with that.
I've done this actually. I did this in a group workshop We got everyone to pair off, and one person in the pair would sort of put up a barrier like this and sort of like hold. This is like practicing boundaries, practicing barriers. And then the other person of the pair would pick an emotion like anger and just be very angry at the first person. And the first person would practice not having the boundary and then like putting the boundary up and like, you know, feeling a little bit safer inside their own boundary, even though there was an angry person near them. Yeah, it's a kind of interesting one to play with because again, what we are interacting with is a very subtle, like, you know, I can stand next to an angry person all day if I really wanted to, but it sure would start to bother me after a while.
Dude, no, that grinds it down.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? That's the like I need to. So to be able to control our boundaries and like to close off, to be like, I see what's happening. That's not mine. I'm not gonna let that interact with my space. Is a pretty powerful skill to have.
Yeah.
So good thing to practice.
I don't have that. I'm trying to cultivate.
Well, it's complicated as well, as are all of these little nuanced, subtle things, because of course we can try and put up these boundaries, but what we end up doing most of the time is probably creating resistance. So ideally what you want to do is have it completely pass through you. So that there's an angry person, comes out of them through me and just like keeps going, you know. It doesn't actually interact with me.
I don't think it's always, because like sometimes it is like, I think it's more, there's more than that. Like it's not always you want the anger to pass through you. Sometimes you want to block it. Sometimes you want to like deal with it. Like it's
right. I think sometimes you want to engage with it or like transform it or do other interesting things.
Yeah. Like I think it's complicated in the way that like what should you do with your physical body is complicated.
Right.
Like you don't always want to.
Yes.
Even if you're like boxing, you don't necessarily always want to avoid. Sometimes you want to block. Sometimes you want to, you know, like it's more complicated than just this is the thing you always do.
Right. I think probably what I want is I want the freedom to choose how I end up interacting with any particular phenomena, be it like a ghosty type phenomena or an angry person type phenomena or whatever it is, even my own grumpiness. I want the choice on how to interact with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a way of doing it.
Anyway, aura massage. So it's like aura massage. so these people seem to be able to interact with that space around you and like do the the massage thing, like soften it or strengthen it or realign it or do something positive to it. It seems without being certain on what the positive thing is. It seems to do something. We did only have about 5 minutes, so it's kind of like a quick taster of good things, but they did seem to be able to do something positive.
Yeah, it is interesting because like this, like for me, this stuff, like getting into this stuff, like the first time I did shrooms, I was able to like touch it. Like I was like, this is normal and this is weird.
Right.
Like I remember doing that, and it's like my hand was like here and then the other person's like, yeah, that is weird.
Right.
Like how do you?
Like the boundary.
You know, like, well, why is that weird? And I'm like, because it's the interdimensional like space or whatever, like whatever it was that I was like frame I was using when I was on
having a mushroom experience.
Yeah, but like that, like that definitely is weird. Like you can definitely feel when
if someone puts their hand too close to your face, you're like, that's weird.
Like back off, dude. And sometimes you want it. Like sometimes it feels good that like when people are like getting close to you, like that can feel good. Depending on how much you like them. And
I'm super interested in I don't have the book within reach, but there's a book, there's 2 books. One is called Hands of Healing Light and talks about school by a lady named Barbara Brennan, and she has a whole school of sort of spiritual therapy, hard to put a pin in word, but it's a school of teaching these things. And then there's another book, Healing Touch, I think it is, which is again the like something magical in touch-based therapy. Like even holding someone's hand with the right touch can be a very powerful move.
Yeah.
But I have some books that I've been reading about like healing touch. There's a lot in the intention. Like if you intend to do kindness and you want to hold someone's hand, that can be very powerful.
Yeah. often even if you're like not even doing it well, but like the like the kindness or the intention just like kind of goes through anyway.
Mm.
It's so interesting because like I hang out with my son a lot, and like he's starting to get to the point where he'll like he used to be only like his only touch was like pick me up or like like hold me, and now he's getting to this point where sometimes he wants to hold my hand.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's very cute.
Yeah, like it's much he's starting to get much more nuanced on like where it's not just all nothing. And that's interesting. Like even like that kind of stuff is basic of building those attachment styles where he can have these gradients of connection where like like let's say the ultimate connection is picking him up and holding him, and then the ultimate like farther like disconnection or whatever it, but I don't mean it in like a negative way, I mean in like a
Like
long
freedom,
distance connection.
freedom way.
Yeah, like he's off doing his own thing.
He's climbing a thing or walking over there or
Yeah, or
playing
he's
toys
playing
over
with,
there.
yeah, and he forgot about me living his life. And then like getting these much more gradients where like okay like check in for seeing, um or he'll like want to walk somewhere and so I'm holding his hands, or he'll just want to like hold my hand and then still do his other thing, or um whatever, like all these relationships are being developed. And I don't know, it just reminded me of like the touch,
Hmm.
like that, how that's like so, I guess to like put it into an adult perspective, it's like how we develop these touch points through touch, like so early in our formative years,
Hmm.
and like that shapes us as we go through in these like deeply unconscious ways.
Hmm.
And then I guess like now there's this other thing, like now with these like healing touches and things like that, you're kind of going back into that space and doing stuff, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I wonder what's going on from a scientific paradigmatic perspective. I want to be able to explain this and bottle that up and sell it in like useful format so that everyone can have the good thing, But it's not clear what's going
I don't
on.
think it works that way.
Well, I want to be
I
able
don't think
to. It's not that
yeah,
easy, but I want to
I
be
mean
able
it
to.
kind of has in a way. I guess like attachment style has been bottled up and sold, but it not really, because it's a lot of the information has been bottled up and sold, and then the examples, they do this thing, but at the end of the day, like you got to live it or it doesn't mean
Mm.
anything. So I
Mm.
don't know. So like dealing with that where like the thing that they say is not the thing that is. The Tao that's spoken is not the Tao, or
Mm.
whatever.
I don't know. Why don't you just speak the Tao?
Yeah, well, it's not
And then it will be.
speakable. No, but it's not speakable.
Sure, I know. Well, it's not.
So
I feel like you could temporarily speak the Tao. You could say the thing that is the right thing.
you're not you're
You,
speaking the Tao, but you're
not
not
the
speaking
universal
something.
Tao. You're just like
Yeah,
taking an action that is being the Tao for a moment.
yeah, you're speaking in line with the Tao, but you're not speaking,
Sure.
even if you're speaking up the Tao.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's so interesting because like there like I was also like I was on Reddit or something and I'm reading this, someone did this comment on attachment style. They're like, why is everyone so into attachment style? It's just like this and like it's not that big a deal. And then I'm like,
Said the guy who's a secure attachment style.
no, I don't know. No, like honestly, I don't know.
Like the guy
But if
complaining, may. This is the interesting thing. If you're normal and healthy and well rounded, pathologies look really odd.
no, I don't think it was like that. I think it
No.
was that like he did like a superficial reading of it and then saw some of it in his life and was like, okay, like this is it. And that's fine, like that's a thing you can do and it's gonna better your life probably, but um like it's different when you're living it across time. in
Right.
like a deep, meaningful way.
Hmm.
But it's like confusing the theory of the thing versus the thing itself,
Mm.
and then being able to live the thing while you're doing your life. Like you're doing your life, you're doing your problem solving, you're dealing with whatever's going on, and to keep that secure attachment style while all that's happening. Like you got to keep the secure attachment style while the kid is putting themselves into a situation where you think it's potentially dangerous. Like otherwise you're not doing the attachment style. You're doing like some like little piece of it, which is like still good, but you've missed most of it.
Mm. All right, Lilydale.
Yeah.
More on Lilydale. Let's go back to Lilydale.
Yeah, yes. So we did that. We did this other thing, the path, the maze.
Oh, you like the maze. So the
I
maze, I've
really
seen those mazes, they're all around the world, but it was like
I
a
never
foot.
the first
Ah,
time.
it's a contemplative maze.
A contemplative maze. It's like a
Yeah.
Buddhist thing.
Um,
And so
actually, I would have thought Christian contemplative, but
was it? I thought it was a Buddhist thing because they kind of like their description of it, like the way they talked about it, like it's like, okay, like this is the karmic path, and it had intentions that I didn't do because it's first time, and that
hmm,
was all I can handle. But it's like this path, and it's a very narrow path, and the bushes on the side were like prickly, but not like cactusy or anything where it's going to hurt you, but just like I was in sandals and shorts, and it
hmm.
was very uncomfortable legs. And so I'm like focusing on walking this path and like not deviating and following the turns and being intentional and being mindful, and it's doing all these twisty turns.
Okay. So
And
I googled it real quick, and first of all, it's a labyrinth because it's got one path through it. Mazes have multiple paths. Second of all, the labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral dates back to 1205, and monks used it for contemplative moments. So there you go. At least in 1205, there was a labyrinth in a cathedral. So
okay.
doesn't mean it's not also Buddhist, or there aren't other traditions using labyrinths, but the
Oh,
oldest evidence of a Christian labyrinth dates to 324 CE in the Christian basilica in Algeria. There you go. So thanks,
sure.
Google. But anyway, there was the labyrinth.
I guess the Christian one. It felt Buddhist to me, but whatever.
Yeah.
I guess like mysticism all starts to blend in certain.
Well, this is something I appreciate is that pre-mystical, the religions feel quite separate and quite different. But once mystical happens, all the mystics can speak to each other. Like this, they're
Yeah,
using different foundations, but sharing the same mystical language.
yeah. Because there's like a deep truth to the world that the mystics look at and contemplate and
Mm. Right. I found myself agreeing with mystics from every tradition. Like, oh yeah, that one makes sense, and that one makes sense, and that one's a bit weird because he's from a weird tradition, but that one makes sense as well. Like,
yeah. So they're all like touching the same elephant.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the
Um,
labyrinth.
yeah, so I'm still going to describe it in Buddhist terms um,
Yeah.
because it's just easier. um,
So walking
so
maze,
they have, yeah.
walking
So I'm
path.
walking. It did feel like there was you there, and then I think my wife was there, or someone
Mm-hmm.
else was there as well. So I'm like also like aware of these other people on the path, and
Mm.
also
It's a
like
spiral
sometimes
path as well. I don't think you mentioned
yeah,
it's a spiral
but
path. So
it's a spiral path, but it's not. It wasn't like uniform. Like I
no,
didn't know where I was
no.
gonna be.
It takes up the shape of a large circle on the ground, but it kind of
Yeah.
had twists and turns and goes back and forth around the circle.
Yeah, so we got like here, and then like we would like pass each other, we get close to each other, and like that was so interesting because we're on our own path and we're following it, and it's the same
Mm.
path. And sometimes we're going the same direction, and sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're getting close to each other, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we walk together a little bit and then
Mm.
separate.
Ah,
And like
yes.
always there was like this barrier between us and
I
this
feel like
knowledge
let me
that
pull up real quick so that it's clear what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was always this knowledge that we weren't quite
this is sort of
like
like
we
a.
were on the same path, but we weren't quite. Was it
This
this
is a
one?
no, but this is a picture of.
No,
They
this is
tend to
usually.
have a similar design, so it's kind of
Yeah,
round.
I
There's
think it was.
obviously a few
Yeah,
different styles here. You said this was the one in Lilydale was like a small hedge, so kind of like
if I
uh,
remember correctly, it was a
kind of like this
little.
one here. That it's you can see around perfectly fine, but there's like a little hedge guiding you.
Yeah, but
Obviously,
it
there's
was
these
like
ones here that have nothing in the way. You can just kind of walk all over it if you want to leave the maze. But obviously, I've seen
yeah,
many styles anyway.
it wasn't clean like this. It was like overgrown a little bit. Like it wasn't like manicured, maintained. Like it was
Right,
maintained, but it was manicured. It's
right.
like they did at the beginning of the season. We were like halfway through, so it's it's like obscured. It was really
Hmm.
nice. It was like a really nice metaphor for the spiritual journey, I thought.
Hmm.
And yeah, and like we're like together, but we're not together, and we pass each other, and like, but like we're all on the same path, but we're all going different directions. And if I like, I knew like if I tried to like connect with other people on the same path, it like it wouldn't have been good.
Hmm.
But there was something,
There's some alignment,
yeah,
like
I felt
temporary alignment.
there. I felt good that there was other people there, and I felt connected to them, even though it didn't make sense to connect to them.
Mm.
But like just being there and knowing that they're having the same experience I am, even if they're not experiencing it right now.
Mm.
But like the journey itself, like we're all experiencing it. We're all experiencing the same journey, but we're not all experiencing the same way because we're also different people, and we're
Mm.
also like walking it differently. I don't know.
Mm.
It was really nice.
Mm.
Like I don't know. I guess like
Now
it just
you've
hit
got
me.
to
I don't
build
know,
your own labyrinth back home. In
dude.
fact,
Yeah, for sure. Like, if I
I
had like
wonder
all
if
this
there
money,
is one.
oh, in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. It wasn't like
let's see.
it's like hard to explain because like sometimes you have these like I get these experiences sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know if I could recreate that or what. Like I didn't want to do it another time.
There
Like
is
I
a
was
labyrinth
really
in Toronto. There's at
okay.
least one labyrinth in Toronto. There's one
Oh,
in Trinity Square, downtown Toronto.
interesting. Downtown's a pain for me with the baby.
There's one in High Park.
Hyde
Uh,
Park, we do the meetups there sometimes.
oh, nice. Well, it does seem like there's a labyrinth there if you want to go labyrinth walking. Yeah, it's a nice big walking space, looks like.
Okay. Maybe I'll
Like
check it
big,
out.
like one without walls. But it's a flat walking labyrinth.
Oh, it's flat?
Yeah, but it's like it's marked on the ground.
Yeah. Interesting.
Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, if we do High Park, then yeah, definitely we should do. Although High Park is big, so whatever. Logistics, nobody cares about that. Logistics are super interesting and important if you're the person, like if you're part of the logistical situation, and really boring if you're not.
I know of at least one labyrinth in Sydney.
Yeah, so we did. So yeah, we did that. That was really nice. And then there was like people waiting at the end because like you guys started it before me. And then so like you were already done, and then there was also like that feeling of like doing it and everybody else is done and I'm still doing it, which was interesting. It was like a cool, it's like one of those feeling like I don't know, it's like good feeling, bad feeling, whatever, but um it's like good to like notice it and to like exist with that tension.
Hmm.
And there's something about like these artificial constraints where it's like, you know, like I'm stuck in this labyrinth, but like the hedge is also only like a foot. Like I could have just stepped over if I really wanted to.
Hmm.
But like given and there
But
was
you're on a
no
journey. You're on a path.
yeah. And like I kind of had this excuse of like, okay, everyone's waiting for me, but I'm not going to hurry because this is my journey, this is my sadhana, this is what I'm doing. And I'm meant to do it, and everybody acknowledges that, and they wouldn't want me to rush.
Mm.
And so there's that like kind of there's that social pressure there, but still that inherent permission to take the time needed, or not even needed, take the time wanted, like to go at the pace that I wanted to go at, that felt right to me. And then I got to have that experience. I think my wife came after, and then she did it, and so then we had that experience of like hanging out outside the path, or like close to it. And so then she's doing the thing, and like again, like I can't see, like it's like this crazy labyrinth. So to me it looks like she's just like wandering around aimlessly, right? Like to her, like she sees the path, and then she'd get close to me, and maybe we'd see each other and smile or something, and then her journey would bring her away. It was
Trying to look up, there was instructions for like,
it was like a really big, it's like a really it's like this like really, I don't know, like I kind of like I don't know, it was like really good, like it was really enjoyable. And they also had all these instructions that I didn't follow, of like
they had instructions that, like, you're meant to go in with a question like, what should I do about my job or something, and then there's like different steps to like pulling apart the question and to contemplate as you walk in this particular labyrinth. There's not like a permanent way to do a labyrinth. You can just kind of walk it any way you like down the single path, like walk fast, walk slow, but it's also nice to have the contemplative prompts.
I didn't bother with it.
It seems like there's a journey towards the inside, which is the like asking the question, and then the journey towards the outside, which is the like receiving the answer.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just had this flash of the tarot, the way you're talking about it, because like I always say that to people when I do tarot, it's like to come in with some sort of question. And sometimes you don't want to.
You don't have to. It depends on.
Yeah.
It's like I would say order and disorder, where it depends. If you come into life and you live life in an ordered way, like you bring the question, you can get ordered answers. And then sometimes you just don't feel like living in an organized way, and you want the world to come at you with the gifts that it has. And that's a different part of the journey of life.
Yeah.
It's not that one is better than the other. It's that maybe different times will call for different levels of order and disorder.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do like for me, when I'm doing my spiritual stuff, I do like to almost not have intentions, just to
So interestingly, I went through a phase of having really strong, explicit, like, journey to enlightenment style. Like, I have to get there, I have a destination. And then I'm currently in less of a directed phase, more of a like, I know I'm going somewhere good, but I don't need to like specify where. I just trust that I am sort of stage of the journey. And there may come more ordered phases and more disordered phases after this.
Yeah.
But, life does fundamentally have pattern and sequence that it follows. Like, it's taking me somewhere.
Yeah, like there definitely is these larger patterns of like purpose and focus and chaos and just existence. Like it definitely like within people for sure. I bet also like within society and stuff is also kind of like that. There's things.
Well, it's also like bits of society we're going to want more ordered, and bits we're going to want disordered. Like the laws, we're going to want them to be fairly ordered. And then the creativity, the art, the permission to do whatever. When we want to do whatever we like, we want to be able to do whatever we like.
But I do acknowledge that there is more complexity to this. But also like there's also this pattern.
Yes.
What else did we do? Oh, we did the medium.
The medium.
Yeah, so this was like this to me, I think was like the climax of the trip.
Yeah.
Is we went to an actual medium.
So we can't name who he was because we'd like to protect his privacy as well. But it was a medium of Lilydale.
I don't even remember what
There's about 30 mediums in Lilydale, so he's one of them.
Like you can't walk anywhere without seeing a medium.
Or a sign for a medium, or yeah. But you do want to book in advance because they fill up really quick apparently, or they're all full, or they do Zoom calls or whatever it is. You do want to book in advance.
Yeah, that would be good advice, which we didn't do.
No, we didn't. So we screwed up. But we did still just barely manage to get us a medium on the afternoon of the last day.
And so, yeah, that was really cool.
That was kind of interesting. I feel like I need to try out other mediums to get like a comparison. I have no frame of reference right now.
Yeah. I have been like trying to start to do, like I got his vibes and I've been like trying to do that a little bit. And it's a lot harder than it looks. Like
I was interested in the way that he presented and the pattern he followed. So he kind of, it seemed like, well, everyone has a mother and a father, right? That is the nature of
you're taking the atheist perspective a little bit here.
Right. Yeah, I'm like taking the very simplified, but everyone has a mother and a father, and so psychologically, and each of them had a mother and a father, and psychologically, these people will have left an imprint on you, especially if they have passed away. Often they might have left an imprint and like left an incomplete imprint if they died suddenly, or they died like with sort of unfinished business with you. Like you said, I'll see you next week, and then you never did, and you're like, oh no, I never got to see them again next week, and really tell them the other couple of things I intended to tell them. And in that sense, the unfinished business could be sitting in your psyche. Again, non-denominationally, not spiritually, just concretely, that unfinished business could still be bugging you.
Yeah, you're describing ghosts, right? When you say that.
Well, because no, not quite, because ghosts would imply that there's some sort of causal force in the world that is left because of them.
You're describing ghosts you're describing people's experience of ghosts from an atheist perspective.
Right. So from the inside of your psyche, the psyche of the living person, there may be unfinished business that wishes to communicate with you somehow, one way or another. And it seems like the medium,
from people's perspective, that could take on like a force in of itself.
Right. The slamming door, the candle blowing out, those sorts of things, in the weird, spooky, spiritual sense, could be.
The senses is like, I think people take those things that happen and they kind of create the story, but like that you get a sense of things is true. Like even atheists get.
Oh yeah. Perceptual reality, you sense something, you're suddenly really weirded out, you're suddenly very hot or very cold, like you can sense that.
The amount of atheists that like don't believe in like Ouija boards or haunted house, but then won't do it, like won't
participate. Right. If there's nothing going on there's nothing wrong with participating.
There's nothing going on there's something going on, and
there's no cost. It's like a free try some magical things, and like maybe if nothing happens, then you'll be like, I knew nothing would happen, and if something does happen, you'll be like, oh wow, cool. But yes, the number of atheists who may not
like it's clearly
So we went to this medium. He seemed to follow this pattern of like so we had 4 of us, so we each had about 15 minutes of read from him, and
I think he gave us more time. I don't think it was a lot longer.
He gave us like a little bit more time than that, but not by much. He kind of followed this pattern of like maternal and paternal, like either in contacting a spirit on your behalf or a dead person on your behalf, it's either a motherly or a fatherly, like a feminine or a masculine.
Yeah, he did use a lot of archetypal kind of stuff.
Right. He seemed to get a lot of like people smoking, but I'm like, wait a second. First of all, everyone smoked. About 70 years ago, everyone smoked.
Yeah, and
second of all, no, my grandparents didn't smoke. Like what?
Yeah. So like it's super interesting because I have like in my atheist phase, I was like, did do a lot of like watching videos and reading and people like skeptics going through and explaining the stuff. And so he did use like half his stuff was very classic skeptic, very classic stuff that the skeptics understand.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't.
But
It didn't feel like he really picked something that was accurate to me. He gave a few like he didn't quite hit the mark for me. He said that yeah, he picked a feminine figure, and I was like, well, I guess that's probably grandmotherly. At the time, there's only one sort of grandmother that it could have been, and so um, I was like, give me some more details, or he tried to give me some more details, and it just didn't fit. And I was like, oh, okay.
yeah,
I don't know what to do with this information. This isn't quite it. Like, okay.
for
Never mind.
me, yeah, for me, like, okay, so
Yours
like
seemed to fit more than mine.
mine have fit, like it was surprising because like I gave him like some clues for things and he went a completely different direction.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said a bunch of things that were like, oh, my son is named after my grandfather and this and that. And then I thought he was gonna go that direction, and like that was the thing because my wife was there and like the connections, and then he just did something completely like
Oh, okay.
field. And I'm like, and it was like really
Like he went to the other side of the family, sort of thing.
he went, yeah, it was just like he went to my father's side instead of my mother's side, which I thought he was gonna do my mom's side. And he went
Ah,
to my dad's side, which I wasn't even thinking of. And he said things like it's like a little bit like there's a little like hypnotism side where you have to like
you
go
have to
along.
believe. You have to compliant.
Yeah, like hypnotism works if you believe in it and you go along with it and you don't want and you don't fight it. So there was definitely was
I
that
happen to
there.
be very low hypnotizability
Yeah, I don't
myself.
know what I'm talking about, but I think I am because usually I like to just go along with things because it's like fun. So why would you do it?
Yeah. Well, I tried my best to go along with it, but also low hypnotizable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. So yeah, so that probably stuff doesn't work on you as well. And then he kind of did some things like I don't want to share what he said because it kind of like hit a little hit a little hard.
Yeah.
Like it was a
He
little,
said he said like a occupation and the style of the
yeah.
personality of the person, and it
Yeah, he
seemed to
said
like
an
hit.
occupation and I jumped on it in a way that like I was like reading into it, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like I did feel myself do that, but also like I wanted it to work. Like, cause like the guy's doing a psychotech, right? I want to like,
Yeah, support the psychotech. Although I
yeah,
also I like when psychotechs have just enough space in it for like I need to coexist with the psychotech, so there needs to be enough space for me as well.
yeah, but also we had 15 minutes, so I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
gotta make the most of it, right? Like
yeah,
if I had like a week with the guy, then I would have done it differently.
yeah. Right.
But like 15 minutes, I'm just like, I just want to like, we're not going to have a whole philosophical discussion. We're only going to do a thing. It's going to work or it's not going to work.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but like it did hit, and then he started like reading patterns into me that made me uncomfortable. And like talking about stuff and like intergenerational trauma and
Hmm.
um yeah, the whole thing actually kind of made me a little uncomfortable, but like in a good way, and like
Hmm. I suspect that the real benefit of mediums is when they can catch something like an intergenerational trauma, and they can
yeah,
help with the processing of something that is intergenerational.
yeah, and kind of
That's
like reframe it a little or like give a new perspective.
right.
And he did that.
Hmm.
I didn't check, like he said things I don't even remember what he said, like to check if it's real or not. But the fact that it could be real was already forcing me to see the world differently.
Hmm. As in, when you say real, you mean like talking about your the real experience of the history of your family,
Yeah,
not necessarily that there was a ghost in the room, but he seemed to name something that was correct, which is
yeah, like he started saying things about my grandfather. I'm like, I don't know if this is true or not. Like, I don't really know a lot about my dad's dad,
mhm.
but um, like it could be true.
Yeah,
Like this is a plausible story. And so that was,
it's an
yeah,
interesting idea of uh there's sort of like there's like the territory of creativity in mediumship would be the territory in which you don't know the history, right? And can't find out the history. Like if all your extended family were no longer available to comment, he could be really creative about what he thinks he sees,
Yeah,
and you could
yeah,
be like, I guess maybe like that sounds cool. But
yeah,
if you knew, then like and like psychologically, you may be holding yourself differently if you knew all of your extended family very well than if you
yeah.
didn't.
Like if you know where you come from and where the things
I
like
mean,
where all these things,
I'm
because like
gonna
every has particulars and idiosyncrasies and uh,
so I'm gonna share. I have a crazy story. I went on a Vipassana 10-day silent sitting meditation. Um, I had about 4 guys sitting in front of me. It was like split gendered. And I would like, as I was meditating, you're not supposed to do this, but I would have my eyes open from time to time and I'd be looking at like what's going on and what are they doing. And one of the guys I picked like what he was working on was like his father's stuff or stuff about his father. And 10 days you don't talk to anyone, and then on the 11th day you have a chat with everyone. And this one guy said, "What the heck happened with your father?" And it turned out his father had died when he was 2. And I don't know how I knew that. I just kind of looked at him and I was like, it's all over your body language. It's all over your body. But like, remarkable what you can read off people. Um, and that was maybe I was meditating and maybe I was doing weird things and accessing mystical realms of knowledge or perception or something. Or maybe he was working really hard on clearing out his stuff or whatever. But I managed to pick it like spot on.
mhm.
Not knowing what I had picked, I managed to pick something.
Yeah, that's cool, and that stuff is real, and it does.
Yeah. And then we talked about it and like he was like, yeah, this is what I want to work on. And clearly not growing up without a father since he was 2 has meant there is a deficit in his psyche in terms of masculine role models. And
Yeah,
now for that guy, he's something he was working on since then.
yeah,
I'm not so much in touch with the guy, but like, such things happen.
yeah. That stuff is 100% real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I see this, like I can start to see this in kids. Um, like watching kids, like we'll go play group or whatever, and like you'll see the way the kids act, and you're like, oh, there's like a thing here and there, like just like the way,
Oh, really? In the kids? Huh.
yeah,
I must
because
say, I have memories from going through primary school myself and being all like adults seem to make sense to me. Adults like treating me normal, but the kids were like so weird. I like kids screwed me up more than the adults, and I don't mean like beat me up or anything. I just mean that like they treated me weird, and I was like, "What's up with you?" And I just obviously as a kid going through like the early years of school, I didn't have the language to say, "Hey, what's up with you? Why are you acting that way?" I could just like realize they were acting kind of weird and put up with it. But in so many ways, a whole bunch of the kids, I would be like, "What's up with those people?"
yeah,
Like,
and
like in
it's so
retrospect, there was someone in my year group from like early years for like probably the first 5 years of school, who now I would probably have diagnosed with like severe social anxiety. But at the time, we knew her as the quiet girl who just didn't say much. But like
yeah,
severe social anxiety, like never said a word ever.
that's like to me there's like there's like a shift to being the parent of like being on the inside of that and like taking it all personally and like getting
Right.
involved and then being on the outside where I'm like it's not about the kid, it's about the parents or the
Right.
whole
Who set them up in that environment and caused them to
yeah
have these
yeah
social
like
phenomena?
you're yeah like you're clear like there is like I'm not saying there isn't free will within the kids but like the huge pieces of this is like the overall large effect size is
The environment the kid is raised in, absolutely.
yeah and like when I'm seeing the kid I'm seeing the environment that they come from
Hmm.
and like so much of that stuff of being a kid and then being an adult and realizing like oh all this shit is like yeah everyone's acting weird because of like trauma or like
Yeah.
it's or like whatever
Multi
it is
generational weirdness,
I
strange
mean, like,
environments.
you get into that, but it's really like the kids, to me, the kids don't have like where I'm at with the, like babies, it's like, year two.
Mhm.
Um, you don't, there's, the kids don't have intergenerational trauma. The kids are born with like clean slates.
Mm.
Uh, and I don't mean that in a philosophical sense. I mean like they're born with like the basic human pattern to do the things, and they all have they have their personalities, which is still weird. Like by the time they turn one, there's already like different personalities,
Hmm.
uh, which is very bizarre to me. It took me a little bit because I'm like, why is that kid like this and the other kid's like that? And I'm like, oh, they're just like different personalities. So like
Incredible.
different sort of strengths and weaknesses.
Mm.
Uh, Kind of caught me by surprise, but like even within the personalities, like there's like sort of like almost like a template that humans follow for the development, and you can see the deviation from that from like the parental, like the way they're raised, the attach. I mean, I keep coming back to attachment styles, but it's like from the way that the way they model and the way they're treated and the way they interact. Um, it's Yeah, and so like it's like this imprint on them.
Mm.
And I don't know how to, like, it's a thing I feel like I'm gonna have to explain to my kid at some point.
Right. These other kids are acting weird because.
Yeah, like, okay, like here's all these patterns, like this is how like this is how human psychology and social interactions and our society and all these things work. Obviously I can't explain anything to him now because he
Well, he
literally
doesn't
just
speak back.
he's starting to speak, like he is
He's
getting
starting to
there. Like,
babble. Does he have words yet?
okay, so he does do words. He like talks to himself. Like that's where he like most articulate is when he's just like talking to himself. He'll just say words.
Ah, he
Um
might not know that you're another person worth talking to yet. He just is making
no,
words out loud to himself.
no. It's like I don't know. I also do this too, right? So like yesterday I was in the shower and I'm like I gave like this whole speech and it was like very articulate and this and that. It wasn't it wasn't exactly like coherent.
Oh
Like it
no,
wasn't
my
like,
co-host talks to himself.
oh, you can touch yourself?
My
It's
co-host
like a
talks to
very basic.
himself. Notes possible schizophrenia.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's not inaccurate, but I don't think so.
Psychotech.
The stuff we do are kind of borders on schizophrenia because like just like having all these like because we do like we'll move in from like image. Oh, I had an image and this means like the
Mm.
image and hearing things and this and that, and like some of this is metaphor, but it's some of it's not. Like sometimes I actually see things or hear things. um but it's because I'm able to distinguish that it's not coming from outside me or it is coming from outside me. Like I'm able to make that distinction. I think that's kind of like the line between schizophrenia and I guess non-schizo. I don't know, schizotypical. I don't know what the
Mm.
opposite would be.
Uh,
But anyway, that's a sidetrack. The thing I was gonna say is like so people talking to themselves like this, like kids, they go through development. You don't talk to yourself. I feel like you call me out on this and I'm still like
uh,
stuck on it.
I have a very quiet internal monologue, and no, I don't talk to myself out loud either.
Yeah, I do it. I find
Historically, like when I was a lot younger, I probably did. Even
yeah,
like as a 10-year-old, I was probably composing
yeah,
speeches to myself or whatever, but not 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 for a while.
okay.
Also,
So kid,
no vocal internal experience. Like, in fact, most of my many meditative practices move away from having voice inside or visual internal, because you want to be in reality, perceiving reality, not in some sort of like narrative, like either a vocal or a verbal or a like visual internal narrative. You want to be in the real world.
okay, so I have an opinion on this that differs
Well,
from that.
this is just most meditative practices will
Most
attempt to
meditation
lead you to the real world.
Yeah, most meditation practices do that because people spend too much time in their heads and in their voice, and they
Yeah.
should be in reality. and it's often
Well,
very difficult.
it's also that people don't realize that they are in their heads or they are in their,
Yeah,
and then like
yeah,
coming to reality can be even to the extent that there's a whole bunch of meditative paths that people get far enough down and they like suddenly hit reality, and there's like there's a huge shock to like, oh, this is reality. I've been living in like a model or a like toy version of
yeah,
reality for so long that seeing reality is both vast and beautiful and shocking and confusing and surprising and like overwhelming. Like that's been reported over and over and over, and then actually some people don't report that at all. They just like, yeah, okay, I got to reality. But some
yeah,
people have had like were so far in their like head thing that hitting reality was just like,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the meditation is also like the calm and breath is like there to prepare you also for when you do hit reality, so you don't freak out and make and do break shit or whatever. Um,
I don't know about that, but anyway.
but so there, like that's real, and that's there, and like I don't want to change that. I think like that makes a lot of sense. Um, but there is also like sometimes you do want to simulate things.
Right. You planning is actually useful as long as you do it deliberately rather than like
As long
get
as you don't
locked
get
up in
stuck,
your yeah.
it can become a prison, and you don't want to live there. You want to live in reality, but sometimes like sometimes you do fantasy, right? Like all planning is fantasy, right? You're pretending things are real that
Like
aren't
if I
real.
do this, then that will happen, and then this will happen.
Like
Yeah,
every art piece is a fantasy, right? Like a picture of an apple, that's not an apple, that's just a picture of an apple. But you're, or like you'll create like even like my wife likes to draw lakes and forests and stuff. Like those aren't real places most of the time.
mm.
They're pretend.
Hmm.
uh, and yeah, and I'm not disrespecting art, right? Like your art, like to go there and to live in this pretend world and to watch a movie pretend. There is, or to role play, like almost a lot of therapy kind of stuff do that. You're moving into pretend. And that's not necessarily bad, right? Like there's a time and place for that.
Mm.
And like especially because we're doing the psychotech and we're doing the YouTube, and I'm not as good at articulating things as I would like to be. So I do practice articulating.
Mm. By all means,
Not-
I was actually talking. I was saying this today. By the time you've told your idea to like 20, 30, 40 people, you're probably way better at describing it than
yeah,
you were in the beginning in the first 10 people.
yeah. And those first 20 people could also be a rubber ducky,
Right.
right? Like it doesn't have to be a real person.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is the classic is like elevator pitch for like startup stuff.
Yeah,
You wanna be able to nail it word for word. You want to be able to tell it to 100 people and still be telling the same pitch by the end, because if it's a good pitch, it's a
yeah,
good pitch.
yeah. Like sales also, like we used to do this, we used to practice over like a million times, because you don't want to be thinking about it. You want to be thinking about other things. And the only way you can express yourself without thinking about it is if you practice. I think there is like within like the psychotech sphere, there is other ways of doing it as well, but like to discount practice is
Mm.
you've lost one of the most important psychotechs that humanity has discovered.
Do it more than once as a psychotech. Do
Yeah,
it more than once.
dude, that's a real thing. Like there are people that won't do that. They're like, oh no, I only do it. Like you do it right the first time, or you don't do it at all, and it's like, well, then you wind up not doing anything. And then your life just becomes misery because you don't know how to fail.
Sure. You also don't know how to finish things because you don't know how to repeat things. Anyway,
But there's
Lilydale. Final closing words on Lilydale.
um
It's totally worth visiting. If you want to, I'd
yeah,
say plan your trip better than we did ours and like book in for one of the classes. There are classes that last for like a whole week in Lilydale. The accommodation's
yeah,
relatively cheap. Make sure you book in advance because there aren't that many places. Definitely book your medium in advance. Um, uh, I'd say take your own food, but that's kind of complicated because the hotel we stayed at didn't have any fridges, and so even though we took our own food, we couldn't put it in a fridge, and so it didn't really last all that long. But also, there aren't that many restaurants around, so you kind of have to work out how to eat or how to feed
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
That was
Logistics is like a
if you
little,
had a camper van, they have a campground, and that works great.
okay.
Um, or
I
they
think,
have they allow tents as well. So
okay.
I suspect they have like an even like we went there in the summer season, but I suspect they even have like a busy part of the summer season in which they would probably fill up the campground. There didn't seem that many people on the weekend that we were there, but I suspect if you're there on the busy summer season weekend, you'll get to see a whole bunch more cool spiritual stuff happening than if
Yeah.
you don't plan ahead and don't know when things are on.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And like from my experience, it was good vibes,
Good
but it
vibes.
was like specific vibe.
Well, I don't know of any other collectives of people doing like there's 30 mediums there. Like if there were other hubs like that around the world, I would probably be super curious and want to go visit.
Like medium specific.
Um, I would look at other psychotechs, like a monastery. I would go visit a monastery if I could, or I would go visit a like the cool. What I was hoping for was like a variety of practitioners, not just mediums, but healers and like people doing yoga and people doing various other crafts. And they were nearly all mediums. There weren't that many other crafts, but I would love to see more. Like I imagine Burning Man has a whole bunch of people doing psychotechs, different psychotechs, and also uh, like the Rainbow Gathering, sort of like a festival thing, like music festival. We have one called Confest, where people are like in. I went to Confest before COVID, and there was like they had big blackboards, and people would write up what they wanted to teach and what time it was on, and then you would have to like wander off to find them, and you like might
Yeah. I
find the
think,
location, and it was like a yoga class or a meditation or this or that or a philosophical discussion about whatever, or like a workshop on how to build mud bricks or whatever it was, and it was all organized by the big blackboards in which people scribbled on.
yeah, I think better is like that,
Yeah,
where
or like bar camp or like unconferences, these things where people can kind of go hang out and talk ideas. I've heard
yeah,
really good things about these.
yeah. I feel like it's interesting, like to me, I think like the tarot, like one of the reasons in tarot is like because like I feel like I need like a medium to express myself.
Ah, okay.
uh, those things because I'm there and I want to do stuff, but I don't know what to do. And so like I think like the tarot is like such a good, it like fills that slot so nicely.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's personal.
that's like so. If you know of any cool spiritual collectives, I'd love to hear about them. That's the like.
Yeah, especially in Toronto, or I
Yeah,
guess.
or anywhere around the world. Not that I'm going to go there instantly when I hear of them, but like I'll put it on my long-term future plan to like go check that thing out if I'm ever nearby.
Yeah, yeah, and if you know about it, you can come online and
Hmm.
talk about it.
Hmm.
I have to vet you first and everything, but
Yeah.
like,
Well, I mean, like I know of a few. I know of uh, there's been a couple cults around the world. There's obviously people in the integral uh movement. There's like Naropa University was a hub of spirituality. There are like India is known as a spiritual space, as is Israel. And of course, every
yeah,
native culture has its like spirituality connected to the land. There is spiritual stuff all around the world. It's just finding it is kind of tricky.
it's like finding it, like finding it's like your flavor, your vibes.
Mm.
Because like I do know like there is a bunch of spiritual stuff in Toronto, like Jewish stuff, but it's like religious. Like there's like religious versus spiritual, I guess,
Right. Right.
which are sometimes the same and sometimes not.
Mm. Yeah. Find your vibes.
Yeah.